These are the TV studios at Apple Computer. And guess what? They're all computerized, running under Hypercard. Want to reconfigure the studio, change the lighting, reroute the audio or video sources? It's as easy as clicking on a Hypercard button. In the 3 years since Hypercard was introduced, there have been tens of thousands of stacks and applications, many of them developed by people with very little programming experience. Today, we take a look at what's been happening with Hypercard on this edition of the Computer Chronicles.
The Computer Chronicles is made possible in part by the Software Publishers Association, which reminds you that software piracy is a federal offense. When a few people steal software, everyone loses. Additional funding is provided by CompuServe, by PC Connection and Mac Connection, by Byte Magazine and Bix, the Byte Information Exchange, and by Intel Corporation, Personal Computer Enhancement.
Welcome to the Computer Chronicles. I'm Stuart Schiffe, and with me this week is Jan Lewis. Jan, we're talking about Hypercard applications today, and you may have seen a lot of things. I'm going to show you something that is impressive here. You know about Hypercard buttons or icons? Well, what we see here are mycons, moving icons. You see that? Suppose I want to take that river journey. I click on that mycon, okay, and now I can go over here and I want to explore the river with these two guys, so I click on that little mycon. Over here on the right now, you're going to see full screen video of what that represents, and here's our little trip. This is speeded up video, by the way. We're going along the river here. Now I can choose where I want to go as we go along the river here, move my mouse over here and say I want to go on that little Esplanade trip, and we'll go over to the Laserdisc portion that shows us that. Now as we're going down the river, what's great about this, this is context-sensitive Hypercard linking. So as we're going down the river, if we happen to see some pollution, some dirt in the river as we do, it shows me there's a mycon with more information on the disk about that. So I can click on that particular mycon and go to a different section of the video now that talks about pollution. You see another icon popped up over here. I can then click on that, and back on the computer screen on the left, get text. This whole program is being developed by the MIT Media Lab in connection with their multimedia magazine project. Here's the whole magazine on this disk over here, everything including the mycons except the actual video, and of course that'll be coming along next. Jan, I know you fell in love with Hypercard the first time you saw it. What is it about Hypercard that makes it such an enticing environment?
I think the first thing is you can do things with it almost immediately, and you can do sort of sexy things, graphics, animation, sound. You can do it without knowing how to program. You get immediate feedback, so you make a change and you see it or hear it immediately. Right. As you go up on the learning curve, let's say you want to learn how to use HyperTalk. Again, you can make changes easy, simple, and you get the immediate feedback, and it just feels good. It's fun.
Jan, we're going to have some fun looking at some great new Hypercard applications using video, animation, sound, and text. We'll see a new kind of Hypercard product called SuperCard, and we'll meet the father of Hypercard, Bill Atkinson. Now, Hypercard is so easy to use that even kids in the 6th and 7th grade are developing applications. We begin with a visit to the Nueva School in Hillsborough, California.
This Hypercard stack was made by one of the young people at the Nueva Center for Learning in Hillsborough, California, a private school for exceptional children. This stack is about Russian history, and it was made by 7th grader Alexei Klestov.
It's fun because you can take stuff from almost any other graphics program, and you can use the scanner and you can incorporate a lot of stuff into it.
Alexei is one of several hundred children spanning kindergarten to 8th grade, working with Hypercard on class assignments. Some are even learning to master the HyperTalk scripting language to create their projects. Instructor Kristen Thomas sees Hypercard as a perfect medium for learning.
With first graders, there's the graphics aspect as well as a word processing aspect that they can start with. I can set something up, I can build a little stack for them, and they can come in and work with that. At the higher levels, there isn't an end to Hypercard. It continues to be more and more challenging, and besides having just the graphics, the text, then they can go into sound, they can go into the programming or the scripting of it, and some of them find little niches that they're real interested in, and they take off in those directions.
Some students are already working with multimedia, linking their Hypercard applications to CD-ROM and video disc. Clearly, this is an exceptional school for exceptional children. But the people here argue that learning HyperCard is just as easily accomplished by average intelligence kids. Because what you see on their faces, they say, is fun, no matter what their age or ability. In Hillsborough, California, for the Computer Chronicles, I'm Wendy Woods.
Joining us now is Jim Secord, Vice President of MotionWorks Incorporated. Next to Jim, Tom Tafuto, President of Applied Imagination. Jan?
Tom, you're going to be showing us your program, Culture 1.0. We're going to be able to basically navigate around 3,700 years of information of history. Give me an idea of why you chose HyperCard for this.
The reason we chose HyperCard was because our development team were mostly non-programmers. HyperCard therefore allowed us to build the application quickly, and everyone had a part in it.
All right, before we get to look at culture, Jim, I want you to show us a couple things you've been doing with HyperCard. One thing you've used HyperCard for is to compose music in a product called Hypercomposer. Show us how that works and why HyperCard was good for that.
Okay, well, Hypercomposer is designed for people that want to compose music within HyperCard, but the command structure built into HyperCard is a little bit difficult. You see along the bottom here, to play a simple note, you'd have to type play, the boing, the instrument name, C in the 4th octave, 8th note, G in the 4th octave, so forth. There you go. To compose any sort of song, it's going to take you a while. Whereas in Hypercomposer, what we can do here is we can compose on a keyboard and it generates the code for you. Now, if you want, and you're more familiar with music, you can even take that and convert that all into music notation.
So you don't have to even see the HyperTalk code, actually.
Exactly. And once you're happy with that, you can go through and you can do things like you can change the voice name too. So you can play, rather than a bugle, you can play it in brass. However you want. Once you're happy with the song and you've gone through and edited it using the standard Macintosh cut and paste along the bottom, you can take that and export it into your own stack by just clicking on the export button. It says copy voice brass to another stack.
This is copying the sound resource?
That's right. And export the song taps.
The HyperTalk code.
That's right. Enter the button name, taps. As simple as that. Now it just asks me what stack I want to put it into, say the tutorial. So it opens up a stack that I've created myself, and I can move that button around.
So the whole piece of music just now becomes another button inside a stack.
Exactly. See, once I'm done now, I can go in and I can take a look at that stack. If I click on the options, go to another stack, click on tutorial, there it is. And if you want to see the code that it created, just go to the button tool, click on taps, look at the script,
and there it is.
And Hypercomposer did all that for me.
All right, Jim, your company is also using HyperCard to do animation and to simplify what we know can sometimes be very complicated animation. And the program is called Take One, and show us how you use it.
That's right. Here's a simple example that we put together to show some of the features of Take One. Now, when we were creating animation, we ran into a few problems. One, it takes a long time to do, and it's also very machine extensive. So when we created Take One, we wanted to make it run on any Macintosh without the use of costly external hardware, such as video disc, CD.
So everything we're seeing is coming right off the Mac
right off
itself.
this machine.
No other boxes here.
And everything we're seeing here is also on one card too.
That's all on one card?
Yeah.
Ah, interesting.
Or could you show us, this is sort of a demo you've put together, can you show us an example of something practical, a practical piece of animation? Okay, yeah, that's the idea.
Sure. Well, here we have a doorknob, and if I click on the play, I can see the doorknob going together. But one of the nice things about Take One is it's also interactive too. So the user has control over the animation. This can all be built right into the scripts once you've created the animation.
Is this all one card also?
This is all one card.
You've got another one, Jim, I think in which you have a kind of Mac maintenance tutorial of some sort. Can we see that?
Exactly, yeah.
How do you accomplish this, with X commands? Or?
It's all done with X commands, that's right. Here's a technical maintenance manual that we created. Now, rather than mailing out a huge 200-page manual, everything can be done on a disk using graphics and animation as opposed to a lot of text. All the tools we need before we start, the disk we need, and all the steps we're going to go through. And here's the demonstration of animation. In each step, it goes through and graphically shows you what you have to do. There's about 400 frames of animation in this stack right here, which were all created using our animation program.
Okay, Jim, I'm going to ask you to get out of Take One if you can, because I want to get back to culture now and give Tom a chance to show us how he used this. And if you can sort of slide the mouse and the keyboard over, whatever Tom needs there to get going. While you're getting up and running there, can you do color animation also inside Take One?
You sure can. It fully supports color as well, too, so you can do color within Hypercard.
And both these things products which you can buy, and Hypercomposer and Take One?
Hypercomposer is on the market right now and is published by Addison Wesley, and Take One will be released early in the summer.
And what kind of price? Yeah, price range.
Hypercomposer sells for $69.95, and Take One is going to sell for in around the $200 range.
All right, I see we have Culture 1.0 up here, Tom, and run us through what this is.
Okay. Culture 1.0 provides 3,700 years of Western history. It has over 200 graphics in it, 2,000 hypertext links, and 90 essays covering topics from the Black Plague to Impressionism. Now, Culture is organized by time periods. So on the screen right now, we have an overview card in which you can access all these time periods by simply clicking on a button. I'm going to click on the Renaissance, and we're going to be transported to a Hypercard stack that just deals with the Renaissance. Each Hypercard stack has 3 introductory essays, and it has information that has been further grouped into subperiods. So if we click on the Middle Renaissance, for instance, we come to a culture grid. Now, the uniqueness of culture is that, unlike an encyclopedia which indexes data from A to Z, culture indexes data as a collection of interdisciplinary events and developments. On the top here, we can see history, literature, art, music, etc., and the different countries where developments were distributed. So if we click on, let's say, Italian art icon, we come to a card that has just outline information about who important people were at that time. And
what are the bolded names on there?
Okay, the bolded names indicate that there is a link from that name or that piece of text to information that relates to it in some way. So if we click on Leonardo da Vinci, for example, we find a card that has a little bit of information about Leonardo da Vinci and even a piece of work.
So you've got the art in there, you have music in there also under the music section?
That's correct. There are 75 signature melodies in the program, and actually if I go back out, I can click on this icon to play a signature melody from this time period.
Briefly, Tom, I saw before you had a paths command at the bottom. What is that?
Okay, let me go into the program where there's some information. And paths, what paths allows you to do is save a set of cards that is related to a particular topic. It's a very useful feature for teachers doing a lesson plan or something like that. So we'll load a path that's already been defined for us by Walter Reinhold. And let's say we want to learn about Italian opera. We load Italian opera, and now we have a menu of cards that has information about Italian opera. So we could one by one go through this. And
okay, so after you've wandered around, you can then sort of keep track of a particular path and just go right back to that.
That's
again
right, and save it to a file and use it in a lesson plan or something.
And is this a product also? Can you buy Culture 1.0?
Yes, you can. Culture 1.0 retails for $175. And it also is available with a workbook.
That's great.
How many discs does it come on?
7 discs. It's about 5 megabytes of information.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. As you can see, Hypercard is a lot of fun. It's also being used in some very serious applications, as we find out in this report from the Division of Hazardous Materials in Alameda, California.
The storage and transport of hazardous materials ranks among the most critical environmental problems in the United States. Accidents involving flammable, corrosive, and toxic materials have become routine occurrences at storage sites, on highways, and along rail lines. At the Alameda County Department of Environmental Health, across the bay from San Francisco, emergency response teams have enlisted the aid of a Hypercard-based program to help them contain potentially catastrophic spills. The county's Hazardous Materials Division is using a program called CAMEO, or Computer-Aided Management of Emergency Operations. CAMEO is deceptively simple. From an opening navigator screen, the user can choose from 21 functions. A Hypercard stack called Codebreaker is a quick way to search for a particular chemical, even if only part of the name or number can be determined. The stack will then link other data sheets indicating the chemical's physical properties, its health and fire hazards, and the kind of protective gear required by cleanup crews.
It gives somebody some confidence when you can read about a particular chemical, or you can read about something on the screen and see whether or not it fits the description of what you're looking at, because it's very different theoretically and really being in a situation. You're really in a situation, you realize it's your life or it's your partner's life.
CAMEO also has a modeling feature to plot the likely aerial dispersion of a gas cloud based on atmospheric conditions and the quantity and rate of the leaking gas. While subject to a generous margin of error, the model can help prepare for containment of the spill and eventual evacuation of nearby areas with the kind of speed and clarity that can save time and lives.
With us now is David Borman, executive producer with ABC News Interactive. And next to David, we have John Pettit, hypermedia designer with Silicon Beach Software. Jen.
John, in the last segment, we saw straight HyperCard running on applications. In a few minutes, you're going to be showing us SuperCard using a Laserdisc. Tell me what some of the differences or the complications are in doing that.
Well, with SuperCard, you've got access to color and multiple windows and menus and whatnot. So it's very easy to make an integrated hypermedia application with SuperCard.
What about using the Laserdisc with it?
Well, there are a series of X commands that are actually written for HyperCard, which run fine in SuperCard. These are from Voyager, and I'll be demonstrating those in a bit.
All right, David, let's turn to ABC News Interactive. And first of all, what does that mean, ABC News Interactive?
Well, there's a new unit at ABC News, essentially a new news broadcast from ABC, and it's called ABC News Interactive. And what we're doing is taking all of the film and video material that we gather every day, and we've gathered for the last 30, 40 years, and making it available, thanks to this new technology, to schools for learning, and eventually to people in their homes.
Okay, this program we have here is called Mission the Moon, and show us how someone would use ABC News Interactive.
Right, this is a slightly new venture even for us. We have 3 products here in the United States out on the market. This one's for Japan. So this is completely bilingual between English and Japanese, kanji and English. This is basically the highlights of America's race for the moon. Every single Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo program, highlights from those programs.
So there's a Laserdisc with all the video and a HyperCard for an editor.
And the Macintosh tells the Laserdisc player where to go and what to play.
Show us how you would use it.
So we have side 2 in the Laserdisc player now, and side 2 lets us examine all the Apollo missions. We've broken it into 3 modules, Apollos 1 through 10, Apollo 11, and Apollos 12 through 17.
Okay, and again, it's in Japanese because it's
in Japanese.
Product.
We even have a Japanese guide, so we can click this button that, trust me, says Taro Kimura Overview. And on the Laserdisc,
Taro Kimura.
Taro Kimura, who was a very well-known anchorman in Japan. He serves the role of a guide on the disc, is available at several places for some background information. We're completely in control. We don't have to see either him at all or him in any particular order. We can go explore.
Suppose I want to go look into, say, an Apollo 17 mission. I want to see the men on the moon on Apollo 17.
We go into the Apollo 12 through 17 module. We have a choice. My Japanese isn't too good, so let me turn it into English for a moment. I pick Apollo 17, and let me go into the mission summary. I can learn about Apollo 17. I could trigger about a 1.5-minute video clip of Apollo 17, but let's jump ahead into that clip to the liftoff from the moon, which is one of the most memorable images from all of the moon missions. It appears on the Laserdisc player.
And there it is.
That's it.
Hail for all mankind.
All right.
Godspeed the crew of Apollo 17.
And the video disc will stop right here.
Now you can do more than just look, though. You can actually make your own little documentaries. Is that the
Absolutely.
idea?
There's a set of tools that we have created called the Documentary Maker, and it lets you take any video sequence that's on the video disc, pick a new beginning point or a new end point, and then play back any sequence of clips. The new ones you've made are the ones that we've put on the video disc
ourselves. So kids will be doing their homework eventually.
And
like
kids are already doing things with this that we never expected them to do.
All right, John, I want to get back to SuperCard. You tempted us and teased us before with what SuperCard can do. Tell us a little bit about it, and then I want you to give us a demonstration of an application.
Well, SuperCard extends the potential of Hypercard by giving the developer multiple windows, color, draw objects, the ability to make standalone applications, etc. At the same time remaining somewhat compatible with it so that you can take your stacks and run them in SuperCard with minimum of modification. Now, as far as multimedia goes, because we have multiple windows and color built in, you can create the sort of hypermedia interface you want without extensive use of X commands. Video, for example, I can bring a video window up in SuperCard and be able to resize it and place it anywhere I want, or I can play it in conjunction with SuperCard animation, which I have here. I can also, for example, bring up a window. Here's a palette I made in SuperCard that allows me to control the video disc. I can stop this, step, etc., scan back, and otherwise sequence my video disc player. Now, as far as other applications go, Boeing, for example, has used SuperCard in a pilot project. Right here, what you can do is the user can take a look at all the inner workings of their 737-300 aircraft and view it from 8 different angles. Let's take a look now. Let's zoom in here to the engine and take a look at the cabin and air conditioning system. Now, one of the powerful uses and abilities of SuperCard is to be able to clearly and simply illustrate a very complex process like you see here. This is the actual control panel the pilot sees, and here's a working schematic of the engine and how the air conditioning system works. I'll turn the engine on here by clicking on it. Now, Boeing's made use of floating pallets.
Control valve is now
closed. Made use of digitized sound, as you can hear. And also, they have custom menus. Now, one of the nice things, I'm going to click on the panel right here, and it's going to turn this valve. And they've made use of SuperCard's auto trace tool to very easily make the highlights you see there in the pipes. Now, the one thing that's important to note about this is not a canned demo. Each valve here has a script in it that senses its surrounding environment and decides whether to open or close. So it's the same logical system that the airplane itself uses.
It was very impressive. John, David, thank you very much. In just a minute, we'll meet the father of Hypercard, Bill Atkinson. Joining us now is Apple Fellow and Hypercard designer Bill Atkinson. Bill, you've sired tens of thousands of little children here, these stacks and applications that people have developed. Has Hypercard gone the way you thought it would?
Very much so. I'm really pleased at how things have turned out.
And I know you've talked about empowerment as the concept really behind Hypercard. Explain that.
Yes. Hypercard is kind of a construction kit that lets normal people make their own software. You don't have to be a programmer to get control of the machine.
So in terms of Mac users, I mean, what has that done?
Like here's an example that I brought, a stack made by a professor at UCLA that teaches music. And he's a music teacher, not a programmer.
Okay. And you didn't have anything to do with this. You just bought this, right?
Oh, yeah. I just
You're a user.
Sent off and bought it from Voyager.
Okay.
And like he's teaching a musical concept of transition. And so he uses the compact disc of Beethoven to demonstrate here. It says play a transition, and there's the transition.
Right.
He's got a lot of different musical concepts in here. He's got a lot of historical information about the life and times, even a game about musical information, life and times, and a fully annotated close reading where you can see the score and notes about the music as you're going through as it's playing the music.
This is somebody who would never have even dreamed of doing a program without Hypercard.
Right. And he's taken his passion for music and translated it into something that other people can share.
That's great. Are people still sending you stacks in the mail?
All the time.
What are you seeing? What kind of stuff are you seeing?
All kinds of stuff. It's everybody does something. It usually comes from something that they do rather than something that they were interested in before Hypercard came along,
just like
and
Beethoven,
Hypercard just let them express it.
Only about 30 seconds left, Bill. Where's your brain at right now? What kinds of things are you working on?
As an Apple Fellow, I'm doing research in tools to empower people in the process of learning. We have books, and imagine before a word processor existed, try to imagine what a word processor would be. For learning tools, we have things that are more like books, that they deliver information, and less like a word processor, that they are content-free tools to empower the process. I'm looking for a learning processor.
Yeah. Bill, thanks for being here. That's our look at Hypercard. We'll be back in just a minute with this week's computer news. In the random access file this week, it's Macworld Expo time in Boston with some 400 exhibitors showing off their latest Mac products. Northgate had this upgraded Mac keyboard, the OmniMac Ultra, featuring macro software. DataDesk has a new user-configurable keyboard called the Switchboard. CE Software was showing off its new upgrade of Quick Keys, a macro utility, and Reference Software was offering free upgrades of Grammatic Mac. Following the intro of the IBM PS1, Tandy has announced the new 1000 RL computer. Base price $750, and it comes bundled with 24 home-oriented programs like a bill tracker, checkbook balancer, shopping organizer, and so on. Commodore has announced the launch of its new Amiga 3000 in several major retail stores, including Macy's and Montgomery Ward's. Commodore says the Amiga will be in 1,200 retail outlets by the end of the summer. Epson has announced a new color scanner that will sell for $2,000, less than some black and white scanners. Time for this week's software review. Here's Paul Schindler.
Remember the 60s? Peter Max, tie-dyed shirts, the sitar. Well, I'm not here to tell you about anybody's greatest hits album, but I am going to tell you about a software package that, for me at least, brings back memories of those halcyon days. FracTools from Bourbaki. From the people who brought you the Wonder DOS shell comes the company's most amusing yet instructive software package. FracTools generates fractals, complex geometric shapes based on natural forms like clouds, trees, and coastlines. You can put the program on automatic mode and veg out, what could be more 60s, or you can participate in the creation of your own patterns using a toolkit Bourbaki provides. Officials at Bourbaki like to promise that FracTools is guaranteed to reduce your productivity. They just might be right. You've seen the same fractals at computer shows on systems that cost thousands of dollars. Generate them on your PC by spending $45 on FracTools. Chaos made to order from Bourbaki in Boise, Idaho. For the Computer Chronicles, I'm Paul Schindler.
Looking at the top 10 software titles for the Macintosh this week, Mac Connection reports that Symantec's antivirus program is the bestseller, followed by Pyro, Type Reunion, Lifetree's Grammar Checker, and Quicken. Rounding out the top 10 are Type Manager, Word, Excel, Deltagraph, and Suitcase 2. Sun has unveiled its new under $10,000 Unix workstation. Sun also announced its first ever retail deals with Entree, MicroAge, and Ninex. Finally, if you watch Married with Children on TV, get ready for Married with Children, the computer game. Columbia Pictures has licensed the rights to the racy TV show to Share Data Software. That's it for this week's Chronicles. We'll see you next time.
The Computer Chronicles is made possible in part by CompuServe, which offers online information related to today's subject. Members type Go Chronicles. Non-members call for more information. Additional funding is provided by the Software Publishers Association, by PC Connection and Mac Connection, by Byte Magazine and BIX, the Byte Information Exchange, and by Intel Corporation, Personal Computer Enhancement. For a transcript of this week's Computer Chronicles, send $4 to PTV Publications, Post Office Box 701, Kent, Ohio, 44240. Please indicate program date.